Now, first of all, to Mr. Paul. Now, in the last hour, we've heard President Trump accepting the U.S. intelligence community's conclusion that Russian meddling took place. Would you still call, with what looks like backtracking here, would you still call the Trump-Putin meeting on Monday a success?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why go pick a fight with somebody you don't need to have a fight with? So I think anytime you talk with people, it's a benefit and move in the direction of peace rather than war. I remember very well during the Cuban crisis that I was drafted in the military, and Kennedy neutralized all that when he called Khrushchev, and Khrushchev was not the champion of civil liberties. And I was very happy about that. So this whole idea that there's some tragic error made by Trump talking to somebody that some people think is our enemy. I happen to think that's blown out of proportion, and that a lot of people do a lot of this spying on each other. Tell you the truth, I'm really worried about the NSA spying on me and all the other American people. Now, there's a problem.
Okay.
Not the problem of what's going on, with the Russians, because I think everybody's doing that, and everybody points it out, but we're not allowed to point out how we spy on everybody else.
Okay, let's, with regards to, let's keep this on the Helsinki summit. Now, I want to bring in Bassima. Now, you've called it a disaster. Explain your views.
It is an absolute disaster without question. And it's very interesting that the Republican would question why Donald Trump would, quote unquote, pick a fight. The United States isn't picking a fight with President Vladimir Putin. He's picked it a long time ago, and he's continuing to do it by interfering in the democratic process in the United States, by proliferating missile systems that are meant to penetrate into the United States National Missile Defense System. And it is the responsibility of the President of the United States of America to defend the interests of the American people. President Trump said that he was going to put America first, but we've heard both him and Senator Paul on the other side of the aisle blame America first. We need to put America first and protect our institutions, because they are going to be here far past this administration.
Now, I just really want to talk about the criticism that we've heard in the past 24 hours and just how damaging this has been for America. I mean, it's come from the former CIA director, the current head of national intelligence, even the House Speaker. But put this first to you, Mr. Paul. How damaging have these comments been for America and for President Trump?
Well, I think it is damaging, because I think the reaction has been hysterical. Reaction to somebody that actually wants to talk to people, negotiate, and have diplomacy and move away from war. Sanctions are a first act of war, and we're putting sanctions on so many countries. We put sanctions on Russia, and that is an act of war. So I would say that Trump should be talking to people. Most Americans agree with that, but then the hysteria comes from the control in the mass media that we have, are preaching and yelling and screaming that you have to hate, 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 and put on more sanctions, move us closer to war. Well, we who have a libertarian message, and I at my Ron Paul Institute, we want peace and we want trade, we want to get along, and we want to react reasonably and intellectually against what's going on, and not to yell and scream and try to motivate people
I just want
and scare everybody
jump
into
in there,
having a war.
Mr. Paul, just want to, you're calling this hate,
But the sanctions are not an act of war. The interference by the Putin administration and the Russian government into United States institutions is an act of war. The sanctions are a necessary response of strength, saying that we recognize what you've done, we are not going to let you get away with it, and we will not allow you to do it again. I mean, what you're saying is like we should just lay down and be a doormat and let anybody come in and interfere in our elections anytime and not call them out on it. That's not responsible
Can you respond
diplomacy.
to Bassima there? And do you think that more sanctions should be put on Russia?
Absolutely, no. We should be getting rid of sanctions, because how would she, or how would anybody react if sanctions were put on us? We don't have sanctions put on us because we're powerful. We have more nukes than anybody else. We spend more money on military than everybody else put together, practically. And therefore, we dominate the financial market. So people have to listen to us. Nobody, but if we had sanctions put on us and we were denied our trade with other countries and other individuals, we'd consider that an act of war. So I just think it's strange that, that all of a sudden that sanctions are a wonderful answer. They really don't work.
Okay.
And if you're moving toward war, and
I
if
would
you
just
want
urge
a Cold
the
War,
senator to
you're
go
going
back
to
to
get
third
it.
grade math order of operations here. The sanctions were a response to an act of war by the Russian government.
Okay, I just want to move this forward now.
We're not initiating that.
Bassima, to you first. Do you think that this benefited America in any way at all, and possibly even make America safer?
Absolutely not. For some reason, the President of the United States needs to go on a global tour of embarrassing the people of the United States of America. He's made a point of consistently insulting our most loyal allies, our most loyal friends and partners. And for some reason, he enjoys having these backslapping photos with autocrats and dictators around the world, and including Kim Jong-un and President Vladimir Putin, because somehow that helps demonstrate that America is strong. It doesn't. It gives these leaders the legitimacy that they crave, the authority that they crave. He's buying into it by negotiating with them directly, and he's not even prepped properly to do it. This is not the way that a country is handled, let alone the most powerful country in the world.
Mr. Paul, a global tour of embarrassment, is that what your president is doing?
No, I think he's doing the right thing. And you just heard the statement for radical neoconservatism. Their main goal is to have an enemy. You can't sell weapons. We can't have $800 billion to $1 trillion, building weapons to sell and spread around the world to maintain our empire. And she speaks that position. She speaks for the military-industrial complex, couched in word of patriotism and freedom and safety. Of course, if Trump would not have engaged with Putin, we would have been less safe.
President Donald Trump suggested having a military parade earlier this year. And you're saying that I have the military-industrial complex? I mean, he ran he initially said that he wanted to modernize our nuclear weapons arsenal. He ran on a platform of proliferating weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, I just want to, start to wrap things up now. What happens next? Because we've seen what looks like backtracking, absolute backtracking. Where is, let's see, the credibility now between the president and his intelligence officials? First of all, to you, Mr. Paul.
Well, I don't know exactly what you're referring to on credibility. I think that Donald Trump has a problem with that because he's on again and off again. My institute praises him when he does the right thing, and we criticize him severely when it looks like he's enhancing the military-industrial state. And unfortunately, we have to go after him about 80% of the time. So when he does something right and proper and moving toward peace, we compliment on him. But then the hysteria comes out. I think the hysterical reaction is a sign of the weakness of the neoconservatives because they're scared to death that peace is going to break out. This idea that we're ready to go to war against Russia or Russia's going to commit war against it, that is so preposterous.
Can I just ask you, Mr. Paul, why, sorry to interrupt you, why you call this hysterical when you're talking about here, the former CIA director, even but also the House Speaker, people that are, very important, very influential, criticizing?
Well, we have CIA directors and ex-CIA directors that have been proven liars to the Congress. So that's the reason. Our CIA, matter of fact, we're way too much involved because our CIA, we're in 120 countries. Our CIA and our military people are around the world maintaining
I would just like to point out the hypocrisy of the conservative position criticizing our intelligence officials who risk their lives for us every day while criticizing Democrats for wanting to abolish an institution like ICE that endangers people regularly and separates families. There is so much hypocrisy in that statement.
See, where you're wrong on this Where you're wrong is you're dividing up conservatives and liberals, and we're not in that category. We're not in the category of Republicans, Democrats, because there's a lot of that goes on. We're in the position to talk about non-intervention and intervention, the protection of liberty, having trade with people, and working toward peace. That should be the goal, not now, but right now we have the disaffected Republicans joining up with the liberal Democrats who used to hate the Russians because they were Soviets, but now they love them.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to bring this to a close. I wish we could carry on for much longer. I thank you both for speaking to us. That was Ron Paul, former Republican congressman, speaking to us from Texas, and also Bassima Alghusseini, speaking to us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, both of you, there for your insight and speaking to TRT World. Thank you.